Hi, I'm Mehrad Ryan Negrechi. I'm part of a group. I'm part of a group here at ASU at Spring 2015 in CIS 440. What our group is trying to do is develop a web application that will be deployed by the end of the semester and usable by real life users. The web app we're working on this semester is something called Zoophy. We're developing it for a research group here at ASU at the bioDesign Institute. What they work on is a range of different subjects, but mostly having to do with virus tracking. So, logging different samples of viruses from all across the country, storing their gene sequences in a database, and there's a bunch of steps in between of growing those samples and stuff like bacteria and getting the RNA samples from that. But anyway, that's more of the biology side. But ultimately, what they want to do is have them all stored in databases and be able to access them and query them and see um, what path the virus, a particular virus, has taken, um, what host it's infected, and stuff like that. And I'll tell you more once we visit the site, but let's go to the site real quick. So right now it's being hosted on a temporary web server that one of our group members has. Ideally, at the end of the project, once everything is done, we'll move it over to an ASU hosted domain, so something like zoophy.asu.edu, and people on the internet can just access it there. So here's the home page. It's the About page. Tells you about Zoophy. Tells you about phylogeography. What it is basically is that phylogeography creates trees for viruses and their subtypes, and using that you can sort of get an idea of a virus and its relatives, if you want to call them that, and their mutations basically. Every time a virus mutates, it becomes a new strain. And that's how basically the flu works. That's why we can't really cure the flu, is because it mutates so much every year. There's usually a different strain going around. And ultimately, the end user of Zoophy will be a small range of people. It's not like an everyday user type of thing. Probably someone like another researcher, or maybe even a public health safety official, maybe someone at the CDC or maybe a state level agency. And what the service could do is help to basically give more information about a certain strain of virus and the trajectory it's taken in the past, and maybe it can help you to prepare, maybe see which direction it's going, what type of host it's infecting, and etc. And the researchers can use it for very technical purposes that I won't get into. So ultimately, the end product of Zoophy should be two things: a phylogeographic tree, like I mentioned before, and also a visual representation of the virus's trajectory. This can give you a cool visualization over Google Earth or Google Maps to see, where it's gone, what states, what cities. Ideally, the project could be able to access, globally, like different countries, its path through different countries and stuff like that. But anyway, so once the users come to the website, they'll have to register and give some information. Let me go to the register here. Here's a sign up form. Give your name, email, password, and your institution. Um, like I said, people that are going to be using this will probably be affiliated with a university, a research group at a university, maybe, like I said, a public health administration or something like that. So let's just log in, or let's sign up as a sample guy. Let's just say Will Smith, and his email is going to be, I actually have to use my email, my ASU email. Set his password to do something simple, like password. Don't ever make your password, just FYI, but just keep it simple for this demo. And let's just say he's affiliated with ASU. Accept the terms of use, register, and there you go. You get a confirmation. Thank you for registering. We have sent you an email. Now, once I go to my email, you'll see I actually got an email here from Zoophy, and I'll click here to confirm it, and it says your account has been activated. Let me go to the database real quick, and if I refresh it, you will see, here we go, Will Smith. It is actually logging into the database. So there's the new user. Let me exit that real quick. So as of right now, we have a bug in the login for some reason. If I try to log in with the email I just used, the password, I get an email address not found. We have some sort of bug somewhere in our PHP, so hopefully we'll figure that out later. But I've opened the profile page. Once you log in, you should go to your profile page. You could have a picture here of yourself, have some information about who the user is, how long they've been with the service, queries they've run, completed queries, open queries that are still running. Queries on the website should take anywhere from hours to possibly days, depending on the data set you choose and the data range you use. Zoophy is going to be running that query in the background using multiple different web services, and I'll show you a little graph flow diagram about that later, how that works. But anyway, here's the profile. I can go look at my profile or log out. Let me go look at my current queries, and it'll show you something here like current jobs, when I started it, its status. It could be in progress or complete. And then here you can click on a phylogeographic map, and ideally when the software's or the web app is completely done, the trajectory of the virus will be mapped against Google Maps or Google Earth, either one, and you'll be able to see a cool visualization, maybe like different red points and basically a line going through them, seeing how the virus has traveled through its host, and that can help you sort of see which direction it's going in and see more about its past, depending on if you're just doing it for research or if you're, like I said, in some sort of public agency, health agency or something like that. And yeah, those are, and then you can go start a new query. This is just a sample page right here. Ideally at the end, you'll have much more criteria they can choose from, and there'll be an advanced search there. But basic stuff you'll search for is the viruses. Then when you click on a virus, you'll have a list of genes that virus has. You can search for those individual genes. You can look at the particular host that you want. You can select a geographic range. You can select a time period. And then advanced users that will most likely be hardcore researchers can search even more specific things and drill down even farther. So there's that. Let me show you the flow diagram that I made to basically explain how Zoophy will work. So here's the user. They will submit a query to the Run Zoophy web app. The query, like I said, it contains all the information that's needed to run the query. So the virus, the gene, location, time frame, the host, and possibly more advanced data, even more than that. So basically, the more specific criteria you select, obviously, the query is going to run faster and you're going to get a quicker result. And you're going to get a smaller tree as well. At the end of this, when you get your tree, I'll explain a little more later, but you could, if you select a really large data set, you could get a huge tree, or you could get a small tree if you are very specific. So anyway, they'll submit a query to Zoophy. The first thing it'll do, it'll call a method called getGeoSequencesUnaligned, and it will call that against the database of stored sequences. And what that will return is something called a FASTA file. A FASTA file is a specific type of file for genetic research and DNA and stuff like that. And what it returns is basically what's called an unaligned FASTA file. And that basically means that the sequences of the DNA haven't been aligned in the proper format yet. So it'll return that. Once the web app gets that, it'll go to step 2, which is it calls a service called clustl-w. That's a web service. And what clustl-w will do is that it will align those unaligned DNA nucleotides, and it'll return an aligned FASTA file to the web app. Once the web app gets that, it'll call another web service, this is step 3, called call JModel. Now what JModel is going to do, it returns something called a log file. It's kind of complicated, but what it basically does, it analyzes the aligned sequences and does something called DNA substitution models. It figures out which one is the best model to use, and that'll help later when you try to figure out the tree. So it returns a log file, a large log file to the web app, and the final step will be calling a web service called Beast. What the web app will do, it'll give it an XML file that's been formatted in the correct way. And what Beast will do is return either single or multiple trees. And once the web app gets that, it'll return a tree as well as return the map. So basically, the tree, but aligned against like a Google API, a Google Earth or Google Map API, and you'll be able to have a visualization of the virus and how it's worked, how it's traveled, and where it could go, and all that stuff. Here I have opened some of these web services I'm talking about. So here's that get geosequences unaligned. These are all basically web services that the Zoophy will use. So if you just click on one of them, you'll see it uses something called SOAP. SOAP is basically a protocol for web services, uses XML. And here it shows a sample of what SOAP 1.1 as a request, and then what it responds. So it basically shows you the format that you need to send it in and what format it'll give back to you. And you can look at that for all of these different these services that the program will use eventually. And so as of now, like I said, we've got the things like the hooking up to a database, registering users, working on logging them in, and everything for right now. And ideally, because it's a little this project is a little more complicated, we're still working on getting all those web services coordinated. And there's, as you can see from this, there's a lot of different file types being exchanged. A lot of different, here it's just 3 major web services being used, but there are also other ones. But these are the major ones. And each step basically sends something, returns something different. And the Zoophy app is going to have to be able to handle all that, handle all the different data types, all the different file types. But ultimately, what the user will see is a tree and a map showing the virus's trajectory. So that's all we have for right now. Please give me your feedback on what you think about the project. Anyone who can offer any pointers or tips about stuff like ASP.NET, SOAP 1.1, feel free to send some feedback. We'd really appreciate the help. Thanks again.